Hey, what's going on, everybody? And welcome to Kicker Rock's podcast, 2 Drink Minimum. In this episode, we got together and we talked about our comedic influences. Finally, it took us 30 some odd episodes to get there, but we're finally talking about our comedic influences. So if you like Kicker Rock's particular brand of humor or you hate it, now you can find who you can thank or who you can blame, I guess, depending on how you look at it. So that being said, sit back, relax, have a drink with us, and enjoy. All right, gentlemen, and to all you kids listening at home, cheers.
Cheers.
All right, welcome to Kick Rock's podcast, 2 Drink Minimum. I am Bill. Go
Sergio.
on. There you go.
James Thomas.
Tony Marino.
And today we're going to talk about...
Let's talk about how you guys have red drinks. What are you drinking? Hurricanes? What are those?
Yeah,
it's Hurricanes.
we made
baller.
Hurricane.
You stopped at Pat O'Brien's before coming here?
Why didn't you want one?
I don't drink anymore.
Oh, that is unfortunate. So
Did you stop altogether?
Straight edge for life, bro.
You fucking...
That's a lie. That is a lie from JT Malloy. I'm calling BS on that lie, but that's all right. Well, it's as we record now, it's June 25th, 2019. That's right, kids. 10 years to the day that a certain famous person left this earth. And, of course, I'm talking about Farrah Fawcett. Was there somebody else who passed away? I don't remember. So today we're talking about our comedic influences.
Oddly enough, mine was Farrah Fawcett.
Really?
Named it,
Okay.
yeah, so.
Well,
That hair was hilarious.
Go in half. Look it up. It's true. It's true. So anyway, today, comedic influences, whether they be actors, directors, writers, stand-up comics, sketch groups, television shows, films, whatever. Okay, books, doesn't really matter. Anything you pulled from. At Kick Rock, as I'm sure you know if you're listening to this podcast, mainly what we dip our toes into a lot of different waters here.
I didn't know where you were going.
Mainly what we
It was
do
really awkward.
is comedy. Tends to be on the comedic side of things. So I'm surprised we haven't done a podcast about this until this point. But what are some of our, I guess, comedic influences throughout the years? It could be from when we were really little, but what led us on this rather silly path to get to where we are today? Sergio, you got something to add?
He's already laughing at nothing.
No,
What's so funny?
nothing.
Tell us.
Are we not recording? Is that what's happening?
It's a good question.
Oh,
Did you
no.
forget? No, it's moving.
Okay, we're good. Are we
What's
good?
wrong?
Yeah, we're cool.
What's
What
up?
were you laughing at? You have to say it. I'm not
Well,
going to let it
clearly
go.
he's laughing at me because I am one of Sergio's comedic influences.
You can edit this later,
so.
but what are you laughing about? Why do you keep cracking up?
Hey,
Move along. Move along.
I saw a really funny meme, you guys.
Did
It had Willy Wonka, and he looked all smug.
did you want to start things off, Sergio?
No.
No. God, no. All right.
Leave me alone.
In true Kick Rock fashion, I'm going to kick it off.
Oh, do it.
Because no one's going to pick mine, so I don't feel bad.
All right.
Comedic influences and things that are funny to us. One of the earliest things I can remember cracking up at. Who didn't go to? You guys didn't go turbo slow?
Sergio didn't go.
You
turbo
did it
slow.
yourself, Serge?
No, I bumped into the
He
mic.
bumped the mic. He bumped the mic.
Dude, you have to go turbo slow.
Sorry.
Speaking of bumping mics on Netflix.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Can
Pretty
we
good.
all
Pretty
agree
good.
this is the worst start to a podcast ever?
We're
I thought
keeping
it-
all
I
of
thought
this
it,
in.
I thought it was, I thought it was good.
All right.
So what were you laughing at?
Nothing.
I'm talking about Jeff Ross and Dave Attell doing a show together.
Nothing. Tony.
Oh, that.
That is a great comedic duo
Tony,
right
what was
there.
your
They roast the audience. Oh, you're talking about the actual podcast.
Oh, I'm going to wait to chime back in as soon as
All
this is over.
Anyway, go on. Tony, please.
Oh, I think I'm going to go first, guys.
Oh, in case we edit this, I hope you don't. Please don't. This is gold.
One of my earliest comedic influences, one of the earliest things I can remember watching and cracking up at, I grew up watching Monty Python and the Holy Grail with my father.
Fuck, that was mine.
Oh, it was not. Was it really?
No.
Oh,
Somebody always says it, right?
I was just waiting. You saw me looking at the kitchen.
yeah, for sure. But I thought, is he that angry? He's yelling that way.
Excellent. So your first experience with Monty Python was the Holy Grail.
100%. Yeah.
Is-
Well, maybe it's a kind of a. It's yes. It's weird because I can remember watching Faulty Towers at the same time,
Okay.
which wasn't Monty Python, but it was people from Monty Python that had this series.
British comedy.
Yeah, John Cleese was the main character and one of the main writers. So,
Sure.
yeah, but I can remember growing up on watching Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and I still watch it to this day. And for me, it still holds up. And it was like my first taste of British comedy, and I thought it was absolutely hilarious and so smart and genius, but moronic and stupid at the same time.
It's a good description.
And now that I'm talking about it,
You'd probably like Blackadder.
it
then.
sort of makes sense why some of my sketches that I write get to the point that they get, and so ludicrous.
I was going to say you.
It all sort of makes sense.
You tend to write on the absurd side. So it does make sense.
Like, dude, I can remember watching that.
So to give you guys some context, the one where the toaster came to life, Tony's brain.
That's weird, man.
Bad egg.
So weird.
That's
Also Tony's
That's
brain.
in my first.
Okay.
That's in my top 5, or maybe even top 3.
So-
Yeah, you
Yeah.
love toaster. That makes me
But
happy.
by
why. I
far,
just
by
got
far
to
some of
love
the
it.
most absurd, no doubt. So this all checks out.
It all
Keep
makes
going.
sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I'd say it's probably a big influence or something that that was an early influence at least. There's definitely more things and more modern things and things that I watch now, but like that still holds up to me, man. Like I can't see coconuts or hear horses gallop without thinking of one or the other when I see the other one. You know what I mean?
Didn't know we had a king.
Yeah, like
Thought we were an autonomous collective.
like, dude, there's so many great one-liners in there, and then there's so many jokes that come full circle as well within that one movie where it's just kind of like, it's just really smart. I think it's just good, smart, fun, stupid writing, and for me, it really holds up. And I'd say that's probably one of my biggest influences.
I have seen all their movies and like half of the episodes of the shows,
Okay.
and I still like the Holy Grail the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for
like,
me too.
Sometimes when somebody tells me, "Oh, I don't like," everybody loves that one, but I love Life of Brian. I'm like, you're lying.
Yeah, like anyone who says that is full of shit. It's like Life of Brian's good, but it's not even close to Holy Grail.
You know, it's exactly. It's not exactly. It's not that Life of Brian is bad.
Right.
It's just that Holy Grail happens to be also
The Holy Grail.
Yeah. And the show though has some gems of sketches. Though.
Oh, absolutely.
When they were
And now for something
just in
completely
their
different,
private
yeah.
going. Oh,
They were kids back then. And like if you watch some of that and you realize like
so good.
like how old Cleese is now, and you're like, oh my god, they were so young when they did that, but like that stuff's still funny. Like, what we was it like 3 months ago? We watched Ministry of Silly Walks, and we were dying laughing still.
It's up.
So good.
It's hilarious.
So
And it's stupid. It's very stupid, but it's also hilarious, and it works.
My
and it's
favorite
still-
Monty Python sketch was the one where somebody wrote. It was like a documentary style thing, and it was like somebody wrote the funniest joke in history, and anytime somebody read the joke, they died from laughter. And so it's like the guy who wrote the joke read it back to himself and died, and then the wife came in and read it and she died, and then it shows like firemen falling out the window and stuff, you know, and then like they of course it has to go crazy, so
Sure.
like they take it to like the 11th degree, so it's like they start like translating the joke to like German to fight soldiers in World War II, and he's like, the announcer's like he's like, one of the scientists who translated the joke actually read a third of the joke, and it's been 3 months in intensive care. You know? Like, then the soldiers are reading the joke, and like Germans are falling out of trees and stuff. Like,
Oh my god.
It's just fun, smart, stupid. And it's weird to describe something as so smart and stupid at the same time, but like
But it makes sense.
it really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
In a way, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they're huge influences on a lot of sketch groups, I would imagine, for sure. And yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm with you on that 100%. Like from a young age, I remember watching Monty Python and probably not even getting all the jokes, you know, but
Oh, it definitely ages
But
better
knowing
as
that
you
it's-
get older
oh, yeah.
and you learn to appreciate
but still
more of it.
laughing and knowing that and that's a lot of like some of mine that I'm going to say tonight are, you know, the same thing. Like I didn't always get everything that they were doing, but they were just funny. Sometimes they're just funny.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what they're saying, you know? And that to me is, I think, Monty Python, like in their prime, were just straight funny. They could do anything and make it work.
Yeah.
You know, and the pinnacle of that is Monty Python and the Holy Grail is. I'd watch that movie today, just like you said, and I'd laugh.
It's still perfect.
I'd laugh at every part I'm supposed to laugh at, and even parts that I might be discovering for the first time as well. It still holds up.
There are some who call me
Tim?
Exactly.
I
just love when he just like in the middle of the conversation, he just starts pointing at shit and it explodes. Then they start clapping.
It's called battle. Yeah.
It still holds up.
That rabbit.
That's a great because like no, it is the rabbit. I talk about this with my friend Drew sometimes. Is that like it's like a rule of comedy that things are funnier when they look shitty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes when like a movie has like just high grade special effects and stuff, it's just not as funny. If it looks fake as fuck, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
And that's the rabbit.
That basically like the rabbit running on what seems to be a fishing line, like at the throat, but still that's
and then the copious amount of blood.
Horrible, dude, the blood work is so over the top, but it's so funny. Like I almost once a year get a white rabbit tattoo, almost once a year because of that. Because it's one of those things where it's like, fuck, no, I'm not gonna get that. No, I swear to God. That's like, I still laugh about that with my dad every single time.
Well, that the holy hand grenade, things like that, things like the rabbit, they're in like the zeitgeist of like, you know, pop culture and
Sure,
stuff. Because they've been featured or referenced in. There was a video game I played a couple of years ago, which was Dragon's Crown.
Bethesda's Monty Python.
It's It's a very nerdy RPG style game, right? High fantasy stuff. You're a wizard or a knight or whatever. Anyway, one of the levels has a boss where it's this little white rabbit.
Nice.
And they totally spoof.
That's awesome.
And the white rabbit just pops out and you're like, oh, I got to fight this thing. And then all of a sudden it's just vicious. And it's one of the toughest bosses in the game because, you know, they're making fun of the Monty Python
cool.
thing.
They referenced it in...
years later, in like 2015, this game came out, something like that. It's still a joke.
Right.
You know, yeah.
They referenced it in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Remember the animalities? It was like, for those who don't know.
The rabbit out there? Yeah.
No, not that. It was that was one of the
different?
friendships. That was just
Okay.
but like you could turn into an animal and kill somebody. But like Katana turned into a tiny white rabbit and then it just lunges for their neck and a bunch of blood comes out.
There you go. That's
Well,
it.
I mean, look at Spamalot that came out. You know what I mean? Like, even there was some Broadway stuff too. So like, it's definitely influenced a lot.
Yeah, Life of Brian didn't get a musical. So there. by that reasoning alone, Holy Grail is the best one.
Why not?
There you go.
So yeah, cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for chiming in. Who's next?
Oh, that's awesome. I'll go.
William.
Oh, will I? I will. William.
All right, thanks, Bill. Sergio, you're up. Oh, sorry, Bill. All right, go ahead.
So when mine's horrible, we just cut to that moment. Like, okay, thanks, Bill. That was good. Yeah, I was when we came up with this topic, I was all about it, and then like I quickly was like, wait, no, we can't. This needs to be like 10 hours.
Yeah, there's
long.
too much.
Yeah.
There's too much.
So I'm gonna try and narrow it down. I apologize. I tend to talk too much, as I'm sure you guys all know who are listening and here at the table as well. You're doing it now, Bill. Shut up.
You just took 7 seconds to say that.
I know. So I'm gonna go with what first got me, I think, on this path to whatever it is that I do for this comedy that led me to Kick Rock. I think ultimately was Johnny Carson, The Tonight Show. When I was a young Bill, before I called it The Tonight Show.
Just a little boy.
When I was just a little boy, before I knew The Tonight Show, I didn't call it that. I called it Johnny. I just called it, I want to watch Johnny. I would say that.
Not even Here's Johnny?
To my mom. No, just Johnny. Well, yeah, probably because I heard the Here's Johnny. Like, I probably heard that, and I was like, I called the show Johnny. I didn't call it The Tonight Show. So I always wanted to watch his opening monologue, but he was on weeknights, school nights. So I, couldn't stay up that late. But my mom always let me stay up and watch the opening monologue. Sometimes, if I was lucky, if there was a comedian on, I got to stay up a little later, maybe watch the comedian. But most of the nights it was after Johnny's monologue, you're going to bed. But I would sit there on my living room floor and watch his monologue, not get probably any of the jokes, but I still loved him. I still laughed because, again, like getting back to that point, he was just funny and entertaining.
Right.
He just had that way about him. Didn't matter what he was saying. So I look back at some of the things now. I like, me, and I like to watch those old clips. So I like to watch those now, and I'll watch them and I'll be like, oh, Carson was the man. Like, and I get the jokes now, but even back then, that was definitely an influence for, oh, wow, he's making that whole audience laugh. I really like this guy. Man, I wish I could make a whole audience
That's an enjoyable
laugh.
thing where it's like,
You know what I mean?
I
Like,
wish I could make people
could do
happy.
that.
Yeah.
And my first impression ever, as you know, I like to do them. Most of them are bad, but my first bad impression was of Johnny Carson. And I would do it, to my mom in the kitchen. And I'd be like, gee, Mama, what's for dinner? So like a little 7-year-old Bill doing,
That's
geez,
awesome.
is it fish sticks again? Oh,
That's awesome.
my, oh, geez. Went all out. I see. She'd be like, that's really funny, but go to your room. Yes, it is fish sticks. You're going to eat them, but you're going to like them. So, but yeah, so I would, dude, that was the first impression.
Your impersonations got so much worse over the years.
They did get worse. The Johnny was actually pretty good.
That was pretty good.
I
That was
guess.
pretty good.
But yeah, that's where it kind of started, where I realized, like, oh, wow, this guy is funny.
Well,
I like to laugh. I like to make people laugh. I didn't really know what that was yet, but I knew I liked making
But that's
people
what it
laugh.
is. There's something appealing of, I can make people laugh.
Right.
And who doesn't want that quality to bring
So that was my
joy to people?
that was my first, like, I'm going to mimic this guy, was that. And as a kid doing that was, probably terrible.
I'm sure it was hilarious, though.
Thankfully, my mom let me. I'm sure she probably laughed after she sent me away
Yeah.
to my room, but she was probably also like, "What a smart ass," But anyway, but
Were you
it worked.
I don't even know why I'm asking this question. Of course you were, but were you like me as a kid, where you were like in school and it's like you wanted to be the funny guy, you know what I mean? But it's like you failed so much, but it's like every time you because it would be like, "Shut up, JT," or something, you know what I mean? But it's like every time you failed, you learned, oh, that's not funny. I should try it a different way next time.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? It's like and then like you get off a zinger and then everybody in class is laughing and you're like, yeah, I fucking nailed it. You know what I mean? And then I'm like, all right, that works. That doesn't. Like you're as a kid, I was like testing out like what does and doesn't make people.
There was definitely
get a reaction.
There was 100%. There was definitely a desire to be funny. You call it class clown or call it whatever you want. I don't know if it was that. But there was definitely if I got a zinger, if the teacher leaves something open, I'm going to say it. I'm going to take it. And if it, if the whole class laughs, that's great. If I get in trouble for it, it's a side effect of I made everybody laugh.
The best is when you caught
definitely.
your teacher's smirk before they yelled at you, where it was like, yes, this is exactly what I should have said here.
That's funny because when I was a little kid, I would always like get all the like other kids in front of me. I said, "All right, guys, tell me your jokes." And then like once I hear which jokes are the funniest, I would say, "All right, you tell your joke first, and then you go second." You go.
So you were directing.
So you're directing it.
I totally
Oh, I hope you were serious. Here's the thing. I thought you were 100%.
I read like an interview with Conan O'Brien ages ago, and this always stuck with me. Is that like somebody asked him like, "Were you the class clown in your class and stuff?" And he's like, "No, class clowns are the kind of kids who eventually got arrested and went to jail or whatever."
That's
You know what I mean? Like they were
That's
the pieces of shit. Like they didn't take anything seriously or whatever. But it's like people who ended up in comedy were usually probably the outsider who probably like was observing people and trying to figure out comedy.
Yeah, it was the awkward kid.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
absolutely, there was like
class clown's different from somebody who studied and grew up with comedy that thought of it as an art form or whatever. You know what I mean? I don't know.
No, absolutely. That was always funnier.
I mean,
like,
there's shades in between, of course, but it's
I like to think I was, but I was always funnier performance-wise. Like when you actually had to do it like on stage or something like that.
Yeah.
I could put that together. Or if it was a class project or something,
Right.
I would excel at that. But there were definitely kids who were just naturally funnier than me. No doubt about it. Who were just the class clowns who were just like, just naturally funny and just say stuff and you'd be like, wow, he's a really funny guy.
Yeah.
I wish I was that funny.
There would be that. There would be that.
You try to be that funny, but yeah.
Sometimes somebody would say something and
If that makes
people would laugh and you'd be like, you didn't laugh because that was funny. You laughed because that guy's good at sports and you want to be friends with him. You know what I mean?
But then
there's
that aspect too. Sure,
but then there's like the middle of that middle of the road kind of where it's just like, goddamn, yeah, no, you're right. Like where it's just like, fuck, that person is just so naturally funny. But
right.
They don't. I don't know. They don't.
But they just didn't have any desire or whatever or want to do that.
To get into comedy in air quotes, which nobody can see because whatever.
Yeah.
It's radio. I mean podcast. But it's like
same thing.
It's like you really do have to study it. Like not everybody studies stuff.
No, yeah, you're right.
So there's probably a lot of funny people out there who should have gotten into comedy but didn't.
100%. There's, like I can think that's an interesting concept because there are definitely people that I went to school with who I know they're just funny,
naturally
funny
timing.
kids, right?
Right.
They're just funny kids. Whatever they said, whatever they did was funny. But they never, they didn't get into theater. They didn't get into whatever. They never put it. They never put it on stage or anything like that.
Yeah.
As a performance, they were just funny, like in class or out at a party.
Right.
But not just like I don't want to be like,
they were
just funny there. They were hilarious, but but they just didn't have the desire to do that.
Right.
And then so that's it's interesting to think about in that way. But anyway, that's where. I got sad. It sounds like we're all fans of Carson. Anyway.
So you stayed up late and watched Carson. That's some low grade shit. I stayed up and watched Night Court.
Oh yeah.
Late with my mom. So that was
that's some highbrow shit.
Yeah, that's some highbrow shit.
I like it.
Carson. Night Court. I'm fucking around.
No, I know. I was trying to think. I did watch basically the what were the jokes of the day. That's what his monologue was, I guess. I don't care. I loved it. Anywho, Serge, you ready?
Yeah. For me, it's one of those things where it's like when you're a little kid, you're exposed to so many like child like cartoons and whatever, and that's comedy in its own right because it's geared towards.
That's distractions.
That's distractions.
Let me distract my kid.
Actually, that's a great way to say it. Like children's comedy TV shows are distractions. So the first time I actually realized or enjoyed or appreciated like adult, it's not like I'm saying like adult like in a bad way, but comedy. But like I just remember
you were 10.
Probably. I just remember my sister renting the movie Money Pit with Tom Hanks.
Sure. And Shelley Long.
Yeah.
They get the house.
It's fantastic, dude.
And watching that movie and just seeing Tom Hanks. And I don't know if the kids of today know that Tom Hanks wasn't always a dramatic actor.
No.
Like, he started very much...
comedic.
He was a young man.
Very much comedic roles. And, like, Money Pit and his performance in that movie... I just remember laughing my ass off, like, scene after scene after scene.
Dude, when they finally get stairs, that's my favorite scene. His reaction.
My favorite, though, is the scene in that movie where Shelley Long is filling the bath on the second floor
with the buckets,
with hot water, and it's like filling up with the buckets, and they're pouring buckets of water in there, and they're pouring it in, and Tom Hanks, he comes up with his last bucket and he pours it in, and it's just too much weight that the bathtub breaks through the floor, falls to the first floor. And it's like silent, and it was like one of those comedic timings of just like them just like staring at it, and it's just silent. And then you just see Tom Hanks go, ha. And breaks out into this huge, like long,
manic
laugh. That lasts for probably a minute, which in like film time is just like so much time to give to a laugh. But it was one of those things where it's like you could not help but laugh at that scene. And it's like, for me, that was a moment where I'm like, wow, there's like movies that are like adults understand and appreciate and whatever. But it's just such a natural, basic thing that like it's hilarious. Sure. And that's when I really was like, all right, cool. I gotta like really appreciate more comedy. And I think that's more when I like really just liked Tom Hanks even more as an actor, and it was like a little bit after that he started shifting to more dramatic roles.
No, let's not forget about The Burbs.
Oh,
Probably one of the best.
That's
comedic
another
movies
great
of
one.
I didn't even
Oh
think
my
about
God.
it until you mentioned Money Pit. Immediately, I was
Yeah.
like, the fucking Burbs is
Yeah.
one of the funniest movies ever.
Yeah.
Joe versus Volcano.
No. You can just
That one
start
too.
naming young Tom Hanks movies,
Bachelor
and that's
Party.
not. Neither of those are great movies, but The Burbs and Money Pit, great movies.
Wait. Big?
Big's
Big, yeah.
funny.
All right.
That's
It's
that.
like- honestly,
that's
it's
that
like-
literally. That's a literal coming of age movie. That's
Right? Because after Big, I think he did like Forrest Gump, and all of a sudden it was like, all right, let's just give this guy all dramatic roles.
no. That's a big
Philadelphia.
jump, right?
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia's his big one, yeah.
That's
Them
a good
Forrest
point.
Gump.
That's when he
Good
showed
point.
his chops.
But nonetheless, like for
Well,
me,
back-to-back
early
for
on,
us.
Tom Hanks with his performance in Money Pit was really the moment where I opened up my eyes and said like, oh yeah, you can make people laugh.
I always just liked him on Saturday Night Live. Because he hosted it so many times back in the day.
Yeah.
I was gonna say he wasn't a regular on
No,
there.
no,
He just
no.
hosted
He might as
them.
well have been. I mean, he was probably in more of them than Robert Downey Jr. was. Yeah, take that, Robert Downey Jr. It went silent after that. God damn
It
it.
just got so quiet.
Robert
Take that,
Downey.
Robert Downey Jr. Okay.
RDJ.
And crying his Iron Man money.
JT doesn't like.
Oh shit.
Love Robert Downey
That's
Jr.
hilarious.
Should I go?
Yes, you should go.
Silent. All right, everybody, let's see how long we can be quiet. 1, 2, 3.
I just woke up today.
We don't want dead air.
No, we don't.
Dead air is bad. Do you ever hear dead air like while you're listening to a podcast or the radio? Something you really actually think something is wrong,
You're like,
or like somebody's trying to call you and like you turn your phone like ringer on silent. You're like, what the fuck? Oh, they just. Ugh.
Seems like that.
See, I did that.
You just did it. You just did it.
God
I
damn it.
can't stand dead air. So I just keep it
So
going.
stupid.
A B C D E F G H I J K. What?
I get mad like when I'm really into a podcast and then all of a sudden the phone starts ringing and I'm like, oh, this better be an emergency.
Somebody better be dead.
How do they not know I'm listening to this right
Have
now?
you guys ever seen Tom Hanks's bit on Happy Days?
No.
He fights the Fonz. You guys have never seen that?
No.
He plays like basically if it was the Greasers and the Socs, he looks like a fucking Soc, and he fights the Fonz. And it's one of the funniest. Well, I'll show you guys after the podcast. It's one of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen.
I'm feeling it. I'll go next, I guess, and stuff.
I think that's the order.
That's probably what we
This
should
is
do.
feeling very loose.
I know,
today.
it's fucking great.
Or every which way but loose.
I'm
Huh?
But
Butt
loose.
loose.
Money. All right, Money Pit.
I
Nothing
used
in
to play
common.
bass and butt loose.
It looks like he was in a serious movie called Every Time We Say Goodbye that I've never seen. Because he's a Protestant World War II pilot and a Jewish girl. They fall in love.
Gotta squat loose.
Before?
Butt loose.
That's after Money Pit, but before Big. The Burbs was after Big. My God.
Oh shit.
Footloose always turns into the DuckTales theme for me. Life is a mystery. Rewrite history. Footloose. Woo.
Talking about Kevin
Gotta-
Bacon.
Gotta DuckTales.
Footloose. Oh, shit.
Oh, god damn it. Where's this
Wait,
way?
are you telling me The Burbs was 89 and A League of Their Own was 3 years later?
Yeah.
That's insane to me.
There's no crying in baseball.
Well, there is at this reality of my fucking timeline. Jesus Christ. And then Philadelphia was the following year after League of Their... Okay, so League of Their Own happened, and then Sleepless in Seattle, and then Philadelphia that same year.
One of the funniest things I ever saw was on Saturday Night Live back in the day. They had like when Philadelphia came out, they had like one of the, they do their commercials and stuff on SNL, and it was for like
They made a joke about this?
it was hilarious. It was like Philadelphia action figures, and it was like these kids playing with like figures, and
my
it was shot like a
God.
kid's toy commercial, and he's
That's
like
so risky and hilarious.
he was just like. He's getting with rocket launcher and jetpack, you know what I mean? He's like, "You're fired." No, you're fired. Pew, and he like shoots him with like the
Shut
little like
up.
thing that shoots out of the laser cannon. And it's like, and now Philadelphia on Sega Genesis, and it shows like footage from like Wing Commander
Oh,
or
my
something.
God.
It just like got more and more ridiculous as it went on. And it zooms in on the kid's face, and instead of saying Sega, he's like Philadelphia. What am I picking? Oh, right, The Simpsons. That's just the start. I'm picking my real one later, but this is the start because I just got to get this out of the way. The Simpsons is the funniest thing ever in history. like the first like 8 seasons because nobody cares about like. Well, nobody especially cares about like 12 onward, but
that's true. I think the sweet spot though is like
it's pretty debatable what season it goes to with some people, but
yeah.
most people say 8, 8 or 9 or 7 or whatever. But like,
sure,
it's just it was so amazingly clever, like to the point where it's like whatever you were expecting, they went one joke ahead and then took that back and subverted it some more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like subversion inside of subversion, and it was just like. What was great about it is it still had heart, but deep down it was just such a stab in the face of American culture. You know what I mean?
Well, the reason that it's on season whatever it's on at this point is because of those first 8 or 9 seasons.
Well, yeah, of course.
Like.
But like the earliest days of it and stuff, it was like that. Like nowadays, it's just some dumb cartoon that's like probably make you go like once.
Do you not? I mean,
but like
I think there's still some gems here and there. They have some.
I don't think so at all.
No, not even like as a whole episode.
Are you still watching it at all, or I haven't watched a new one in years.
Every time I've caught it, I've been like, "This is so unclever." This is just like it's just that the old stuff set such a standard.
It did.
That like
it did, yeah.
It's like it was making jokes within side of jokes within commentaries within side of commentaries, and the new ones are just like, oh, that's like
you know what? Yeah,
By the time like they were parodying the Matrix and stuff, it was like fuck you.
What's telling right now is as I only in especially recent years, but probably longer than that, I watched the Treehouse of Horror ones every year.
Yeah, those are bad.
But yeah, they're not. And I'm not saying they're good. Those are the only ones I'll tune in for because it's like, well,
for nostalgia
I'm gonna
reasons,
get 3 like,
sort of like
those used to be my favorite episodes.
I'll watch this little.
I love the
video.
Treehouse of Horror. That's
right.
To be honest, that's a big influence on our Kick Rock.
It totally
days
is,
that we do. Is the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror? It's
like just
that's the only time I tune in anymore. You're right.
Just recreating the intro for Dexter and showing Ned Flanders is not enough. It's just not enough. It's just 2 things happening at the same time. That's not comedy. Not on the level that Simpsons used to be. Like just even think of just like the smallest joke, like in like the Treehouse of Horror that was like the Twilight Zone with the gremlin, where it's just like Principal Skinner comes back and he's just like. I heard word that some child is using imagination. I've come to put a stop to it. Just out of nowhere. It's just man. But anyway, let's just forget the whole part about later Simpsons sucking because I need to get into why the old ones are just awesome. It's because
please do.
It really is just like it kicked society in the face in the way that TV just didn't back then. And I knew it as a little kid because it's like when I was in 3rd grade or 2nd grade, whenever it first started coming out, like the very first episode. Not the Tracy Ullman stuff, not the Christmas episode, but the first one, Bart is a Genius, where like they promote him to the genius school. Yeah. It was like there was like rarely a moment, like maybe in the Cosby Show that one time where it's like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, or like, like to his son. But like for the most part, most TV back then sucked. It was so bad. It was like every single sitcom was just like set up punchline garbage, and like then like everybody learned something,
Yeah, we were there was a big debate on whether or not Simpsons was too taboo.
Yeah,
for children to
back
watch.
then it definitely was.
Back then, now it'd be like it's PG all the way.
Right. My mom let me because she found it funny too.
Yeah,
so like, but like it was because The Simpsons, like unlike the Flintstones and stuff like that, actually said like hell and damn and like like showed Bart doing like pranks and stuff that
I
kids probably
specifically remember
copied.
my mom saying, "Oh, that Homer," like he is something else. Like she like as if he was a real person. Oh God, that Homer, and
it was like every character on this show was like an archetype of something real.
Sure, and
like the way they presented it sometimes was like some of the satire and like political socio-political commentary was so subtle in that show that sometimes you have to watch the whole thing from afar to see just how badly they're lampooning how dumb humans are,
Yes.
Especially just within the confines of that town of Springfield. But it's like, even as a little kid, I watched that first episode and like, you're just so used to TV shows going like, oh, and everybody hugs at the end and stuff like that. And then like in this one, it was like Bart was like talking to Homer and he's like, I cheated on my test. I'm sorry, Dad. I just think that these last few weeks it brought us together and it couldn't possibly be a bad thing, right? And then Homer goes, why are you little? And he like chases him, and Bart locks the door, and he sits there in his bed, and Homer's like just pounding on the door, and he's just like, get out here, and screaming at him and stuff, and that's the way the episode ends. You know what I mean? It was just like, they don't resolve it. And like, I don't know, just the jokes were just clever, just one after the other.
And I'll agree with you 100%, because like those early years of The Simpsons were just so good because they were just so different that everybody was used to watching. And side note, have you had a chance to watch the CNN like decade series? And I say decade series because like it's literally called the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and now the 2010s. Have you watched any of those?
No, actually.
Dude, they do such a great job of like just like talking through how that decade has changed things. And when they talk about the 90s, they do an awesome job about praising The Simpsons and everything that you just said,
right.
Which was like during that time, and you already said this, like I'm about to repeat what you just said, that time in television was like, we are coming off of the Cosby Show, the
Family Ties,
and it was like the world was just like sick and tired of
it was
Maude.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
It was Maude.
I hated TV as a kid.
Sugar coated, like happy family, and like let's put a good lesson in this episode type of thing.
Exactly.
And then Fox was their intentions at that time from a marketing standpoint was, let's slap the fucking United States in the face with fucking reality.
Yeah.
and you had shows like The Simpsons, Cops, what was the other one with the where they find the criminal with the
Unsolved
guy,
Mysteries.
Unsolved Mysteries. Like they were the ones.
It was
pushing,
literally just murder, arrest, and Simpsons.
Let's bring up
and Simpsons made fun of that too.
Exactly. And
But Unsolved Mysteries, come on.
But
Shout out to Robert Stack.
The only point that I'm making is like, thank
Here
God
we are
that
in
Fox
rural
saw
Alabama.
In
Teen
Simpsons
sensation Erica Anderson
that
goes
this
missing after a night shift at Hooters.
No, right. Totally.
So thank God that Fox saw in The Simpsons and Matt Groening this idea of, hey, let's take everything that we know about comedy in regards to television and just like slap people in the face with it and like just take it from a different angle, because that's what made that show so freaking good.
Right.
I will say,
that's why it did so awesome in the 90s.
I love early Simpsons. It's better than late Simpsons. I will say I started loving Simpsons even more, and I don't know when this happened, when Bart changed from the underachiever prankster and turned into a little version of Homer. I don't know when exactly that happened, but when he started getting a little more stupid, doing some, and it's not the later stuff, because the later stuff, it definitely turned a corner where it was like, crap. But like, I learned to love it a lot more when that turn happened.
The third season.
So I think if you say 1 through 6 or 1 through 8, what were you saying?
1 through 8.
Maybe for me it's 3 through 8 that is really the gold.
No, you're totally right about that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I give the first and second season props for having some
doing it, for setting it
having
up,
some good stuff, and like
3 through 8's like the sweet
no, but like three like that's around the time like Conan was really throwing stuff at the show, and like we had the monorail episode and just everything.
Wait, what is it?
Monorail.
What is it?
Monorail.
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 Right, exactly. Case in point, yeah. Some of the best episodes of that series came out.
And they
of that.
parodied so much stuff.
Five
And like you
seasons.
did,
Pop
like
culture
the jokes
has
were
come
so
from
great.
that.
So good.
The jokes were so great that you didn't have to know that the Monorail episode was based off Music Man to like
Exactly.
appreciate it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because it was just one after another, hit after hit. Like, we're too late. Oh, I shouldn't have stopped for that haircut. And like, you don't notice the scientist got a haircut until he says it.
It's so
because like he's a new character, you know?
So dumb.
He's a one-off character, so there's no.
buzz cut. Should have stopped for that haircut.
He literally looks and sounds like a villain from the first Die Hard. Like that's what that scientist looks like.
Like when I took a comedy writing class in college, like they called it joke piling, you know, when like you just pile on joke after joke after joke, and that's what they did in The Simpsons, to the point where it's like even in that episode it was like they're like the show runtime is dragging, kicking, and screaming the show, and the show's like, no, we're not done. Here's more jokes. You know what I mean? Because it was like that was the last mistake that the people of Springfield ever made, except for that giant popsicle stick skyscraper and the giant magnifying glass, and it shows the magnifying glass burning the popsicle stick thing and the escalator to nowhere, and it just shows people go
The escalator to nowhere. See, and you know what?
It's like-
still
that's-
holds up.
it's like 3
20
right in a
some
row.
odd years
So
later,
stupid.
still holds up.
That's 3 right in a row, like 7 seconds before it's even over. You
Oh,
know what
yeah.
I mean? Like they're like, no, we're not done yet.
So good.
All right, awesome.
It taught me a lot, and like you know, like I don't know, it was a good time. The early '90s were a good time to grow up like that, like with like shows like I don't know SNL where it was at, Murphy Brown, Simpsons, just like
Well, television
giving you a little
alone
bit of
was
a
changing.
yeah, giving you a little bit of like a more adulty, cynical perspective rather than the goo that came before.
Yeah. The
In the
80s
80s
was just
especially,
awful.
it was
With
terrible.
like I said earlier, every show had to have a moral of the story.
80s great movies, 80s TV awful.
Yeah.
I hate to say this because I want like 8 more rounds, but do we have at least one more round in us?
Oh god, yeah.
Oh yeah,
All
let's do
right.
one more round.
All right, T.
We're at a limited time, but
At least one more round. Go
so
ahead.
since I know you're gonna explode and yell out a couple with your next one, JT. I know you said you have some serious options.
I know the next one.
I don't think well, I've got a couple that I need to just say out loud.
Yeah, do it.
What do you got?
Bill Murray in Almost Anything.
Yeah.
I never saw that.
Bill Murray in general. Bill Murray in general.
Specifically, totally underrated in a movie called The Man Who Knew Too Little.
Fuck,
He's
Searchlight
fucking
presents
hilarious.
Almost everything.
But the Wes Anderson movies and Wes Anderson movies in general, man.
Yeah.
Just like good, weird, different, quirky comedy.
Good pick.
Isn't it fair that you could just ramble off?
Yeah, that's right.
everything?
I'm running it. Fucking Edgar Wright made me appreciate comedic editing. So was that you or yours?
No.
What are you doing? Are you doing like 5?
No.
I'm just gonna say everything comedy. Let me find a website that.
I went with straight comedy, and then I wanted to bring up something that I appreciate, which is dark comedy. Coen
No,
Brothers.
fuck you. Now you're getting into this shit.
Coen Brothers is my pick. Dark comedy. Raising Arizona is another movie I can remember watching as a child.
Let's write a movie about kidnapping a baby. That's genius.
Oh my god!
In the most darkest way.
And it is, and it's like that's a really dark thought, but then there's a reason of why behind it. And it's like there's this couple who can't have kids, and there's this other couple who has kids that has way too many, so they think they're not just gonna miss one. But like that was my first taste of Coen Brothers as a kid,
Yeah.
and it was incredible. The chase scene when they're going to buy the diapers or they're going to steal the diapers, and he's running through the store and she's
such a good
kind of
fucking
driving
movie.
next to the store looking at him, and the police are there, and it's this whole thing, and it's just one of those movies that stays with me. And that was my first taste of Coen Brothers, and they do dark comedy
Yes.
so well.
They
I was
do.
going to say, they
My
do a
God.
great job of finding the absurdity in drama,
100%.
which you could also call dark comedy. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. But they do a great job of that where there is that just, it's so, the absurd stuff they do is also based in reality. So you're watching and you're like, this is ridiculous. But also, I believe 100% this would happen or could happen.
It's
They walk that line very
yes, because it's very realistic and it's very absurd. But like I feel like if I found a book that just said a collection of stories from the Coen Brothers, that every single one of their movies would make sense in this book of just sort of ridiculous stories, and larger than life characters. But when you put them on film, it's like, oh, I buy that. That makes sense to me. You know what I mean? Like,
well, they just recently did that again with the Ballad of Buster Scruggs,
that was great. Which was fantastic.
that was a great anthology. Yeah,
Oh my god.
We talked a little bit about that.
we did.
We touched on that for a minute with something
has
else.
everybody finally seen it now?
Yes.
Oh, so good.
It's awesome.
God damn it.
Unbelievable, man. And that first one was just fucking batshit hilarious.
Yeah,
Like, it was fucking great. And then
Great
there was
way to
some
intro it. Great way to
100%. It hooks you, and then
But
some
also
of it gets
had like
really dark and messed up.
yes, but that first one too, as absurd as it was also a ballad though. It was also like
Yeah.
oh I feel bad for this cowboy
Yeah.
who is batshit crazy.
Yeah.
And it's extremely violent.
I love him. Yeah.
It's extremely violent, and people are getting shot in the head, but
It's great.
we're still laughing at
Yeah.
it because this character's like they're really good at, as you said, finding the absurdity and
In that drama.
drama, and
But still
these
making
dark
it-
comedies and these, like I
believe
said,
it.
these larger than life characters where you're just like. If you look at the dude from The Big Lebowski, where you're just kind of like,
say that.
I would never. If someone said, "Oh, I want to tell you a story about this deadbeat bowler who drinks all day,"
But I believe
likes to get high.
everything in that story could happen.
but when you watch it, you go, "I fucking love this deadbeat
Yes.
bowler who drinks all the time and gets high all day. I love him so much, and I want to know everything about him."
Well,
and that's all their characters, man. Like any movie you watch of theirs.
Except, well, okay, here's one that's one of my favorites of theirs that doesn't get talked about a lot, but it's like, it's a very good movie about a creative type who just thinks that, like, you
Barton
know,
Fink?
that the world is full of idiots and
Yeah.
that normal people are literally hell and that he has to pander to them instead of doing what he wants creatively.
how good is Turturro in that film?
But-
though?
So good.
But what's
You guys brought
also-
that one up 'cause that's one of my.
But what's
favorite
also
ones.
great,
yeah.
what's also great about that movie is it also makes fun of creative people who think that normal people are hell and that he can't get his whiny little art project going. You know what I mean? So it's
Yes.
like the layers of that movie are just incredible.
Yeah.
And they wrote it like when they were having writer's block for another movie. So it's like
That's
that kind
funny.
of
I didn't know that.
It kind
part.
of makes sense because
Yeah,
you know
it
what I mean?
came out of that.
Like you can tell that like they had a fight with an executive and they were probably like, well, fuck that guy, I'm writing this, and then halfway through it they got introspective and were like, well, fuck me too.
yeah.
You know, it's a great movie. I love Barton Fink.
It is
Yeah.
great.
I forgot we were just doing honorable mentions. I apologize. All right, so I picked Coen Brothers.
Okay,
Bill,
we'll keep talking. Oh man, why?
Bill, you're up. Round Robin, part 2.
I know.
You've got 2 minutes.
There's
so
a
funny?
tie. There's a tie here. This is tough.
You can't mention more than one. I did that. Sergio yelled at me.
Sergio Yelly.
He said, "Now I'm getting mad."
Match of more than one. What does that mean?
Mention more than one.
Mentioned more than one.
Match of more than one.
Hey, I met you more than one. I met you more than once.
I'm gonna mention more than one. I don't care because there's two for me that are equal influences up there with Carson as well.
You're starting to kind of Adam Sandler out right now.
Well, I'm just going to say that.
I just didn't know that was going to be one of them.
I have two
Like, is he there in that mindset?
I have 2 influences, and if you say I don't have 2 influences, I'll give you. All right. Anyway,
Jesus Christ.
so Adam Sandler isn't. No, he definitely is. But the 2 I'm going to choose, I am going to go with Mel Brooks, of course. If you've heard this podcast before, I've definitely mentioned him a couple of times.
I didn't throw that one out.
I know. He's one of yours too, for sure.
course.
But for directing, for writing, for performing, he is one of my greatest influences to this day. I love me some Mel Brooks. I think his stuff still, his shtick still holds up to this day. He is, in my opinion, the master of parody and satire in that respect. He just can lampoon a certain movie or book or genre better than anybody has up until this point. So his stuff is great. I love him.
Agreed.
And, yeah. So yeah.
I'll chime in with fantastic.
Please do.
He was on my secondary list because Gene Wilder, I think, is a fantastic comedic inspiration, and Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles, and then how do you not just fall into Mel Brooks, where you're like, well, he's the reason those happened because he wrote them and made them. So, but my God,
they're still
how good is he? And I'll say, I'm not. I love Spaceballs. I'm not the biggest Spaceballs fan.
That's fine.
I am a very big.
It's pretty on the
Blazing
nose.
Saddles and
Yeah.
Young Frankenstein.
Spaceballs is very on the nose
Sure.
and a couple years too late. You know what I mean? Like, because they came out like 5 years after Star Wars or something. But after Return of the Jedi. But
It's still-
but I love it anyway.
It's still fun. I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm just saying, I feel like the gold is Young Frankenstein.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And Blazing Saddles for me,
I agree.
and that's for me.
I agree, especially with. I mean, both those are great, but Young Frankenstein is one of my favorite movies, bar none, out of any genre. If you're talking like
Fucking
top
Gene
5
Wilder, man.
movies, Young Frankenstein is in there for sure. It's really hard for me. It's a completely different conversation to say favorite movie of all time.
Blazing Saddles is my favorite.
But I have to go Young Frankenstein is like, from what I look at as like myself as, what I think is funny.
There's so many good gimmicks.
How I
in that
like,
movie, man.
to write and how I like to perform and stuff like that. Like Mel Brooks is a huge influence on me currently to this day. Like it started with Carson, but it definitely like Brooks. There's something still there right now. The other one, because I really think it's a true tie for me, is how can I put this? Oh yeah, of course. Shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker.
Yes.
Mr. George Carlin. Some of those words have never been said on our podcast before, but it's all right.
And they won't today either. With
Maybe. But George Carlin for me is from a stand-up perspective, from just a writing and performance perspective as well. Because if you look at his stand-up, everything was so well rehearsed and so done. It's like watching him. His stand-up is like watching somebody do.
Sometimes it's
slam poetry.
Yeah, sometimes it's like hip hop,
He's just
Or it's just like, how did you remember that shit,
rhythmic.
Dude,
It's so polished.
His timing, the only person close to him now as far as timing
It's so consistent.
and rehearsal now is Mulaney. Closest guy to having everything
That's
so
a great
polished and go,
comparison.
I'm gonna get from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H and have everything timed out perfectly and so rhythmically.
I love
and they're
me some John Mulaney.
Yeah, and so do I.
Chicago boy.
Completely different comedians,
Yes.
completely different stand-ups, but the only one who has that polished timing like that, and good point to it's almost like hip hop because that I never thought about it like that.
Yeah,
it really is.
It is,
and also and most comedians have to not be scared to call something out or bring something up. But my God, Carlin,
Carlin
didn't give a fuck.
Yeah, one of my we talked earlier. We joked about 10 years ago today. You know what? 11 years and 3 days ago today, George Carlin passed away. Let's cheers. May he rest in peace.
Hi-ho. I don't know if I told this story
Save the world
on this podcast.
The world's gonna be fucking fine.
Yeah, we're the disease.
Oh my God, my favorite fucking bit from him.
Years.
My favorite bit from him. My God,
I gotta go with him. He's one of my biggest influences and favorite comedians of all time.
That's great.
No doubt.
Did I ever tell this story in this podcast before? It was like I first was exposed to him like through Bill and Ted, because I was like 6 or 7 or whatever.
Rufus?
When I first saw that. But it's like because I was like. However old I was, because that came out, 88? Yeah, so I was probably 6 or 7. But, like, I loved that movie, and I just knew him as Rufus. And then a couple years later, in, like, 91 or 2 or something, I was at, like, a friend's house, and, like, he had an HBO special taped of George Carlin. And, like, his mom was like, I don't know if I should let you guys watch this. And we're like, and he's just like, JT, just don't tell your parents that I let you watch this because I don't want to get in trouble and stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I was like, I'm like, oh, it's Rufus from Bill and Ted. And this is probably my first exposure to stand-up ever, too, in general. And, like, because it's not like I'm watching Bill Hicks at 9 years old.
No,
but, like,
you're not. No,
you're not. I'm just like, he's just like, it was the one where he was talking about, like, how dicks or missiles are shaped like dicks, and, like, how it's just everything's phallic. And he's talking about, like, he's like, fuck that. He's like, they paid their ticket. They could get hit by a car. You know what I mean? He's talking about people in, like, the racetrack, He's like, fuck it. I want to see all the cars explode. I want to see a tornado hit a church on Sunday. And I was, like, dying laughing. This is when I was still, like, a religious little kid and stuff. And I'm just still dying laughing because I'm like, he's just saying stuff that is just so fucked up. And it's just hilarious to me. So that was kind of like, in a way, kind of like my introduction to just pitch black comedy,
Nice.
Nice. Seeing that George Carlin special.
Side note, because you brought up Bill and Ted, and then I was thinking about like randomly seeing him and other things. So like, I'm not sure if I saw his stand-up or heard his stand-up first or saw Bill and Ted first.
Okay.
But what I did notice was a few years later when my mom would babysit my cousins, and they were watching Thomas the Tank Engine. And fucking George Carlin was narrating, and one of the engineers on this kids show on Channel 11, and it blew my mind. And like I was
Mr. Conductor.
I was 13 at the time, and I was old enough to be like, well, that's not right. Like this doesn't make any sense to me.
He did this bit a couple years after where he says like, fuck the children. He's like, hey, this is Mr. Conductor talking. Fuck the children.
Yes. Amazing.
So I do give
great.
props to Kevin Smith for opening up Dogma with him just coming out as a priest.
100%.
That's funny.
Nice choice.
A great man. A great man. All right.
Serge?
All right, since we're talking about stand-up right now, I'm going to name 2 stand-up comedians that were probably my first exposure to stand-up. I think JT brought up that idea of like the first exposure to stand-up as a little kid. So my first 2 exposures to stand-up as a little kid, Richard Pryor live in concert, Eddie Murphy delirious.
Knew it.
And I don't know why, for some reason, whatever happened in that year where those 2 movies were both like shown to me. I think it was because my older sister thought that they were great movies. And
Somebody called you racist, and you were like, "No, I'm not. I'm gonna watch these 2 black comics."
Well, no, I don't know.
Then you
what
felt
it
better
was.
about yourself.
No, maybe, I don't know. But those 2 movies, in regards to, and I'm not a stand-up. I don't know what true stand-up comedians feel about those 2 movies, but I really feel like any stand-up that I saw prior to 1978 and Richard Pryor's live in concert, any stand-up comedy that I saw prior to that, even like Bill Cosby, like all of it was kind of tame and very like vanilla, aka what we know of 80s TV shows that we were just saying, where it was like there's a moral of the story type of thing. And then you saw stand-up that Richard Pryor did, where he's talking about things like having a dog die and just like, or a monkey die and a dog hanging up, and talking about how like, I'm going to console you about this monkey dying because it's your pet. And it was just comedy that was just like so out there that like I had no idea where this was coming from, but it was just hilarious. And I've never heard stories told from this perspective, and it was just fucking funny. So
He helped write Blazing Saddles too.
Brooks said, anytime there was a black joke or a racial joke, they'd literally be like, "Hey, Richard, we need your." He called it a blessing. Richard, we need your blessing. And most of the time, it'd be like, yeah, that's fine. And then sometimes it's like, "Oh, no, that one's just for the brothers, man. You got to take that out." That one's just for the brothers. Like, there's this great podcast of Brooks on there where he tells that story, and I'm like, it's so fucking cool. You guys like were together working on this, and like his main thing, he wanted Mongo. He wanted to write for the character of Mongo in Blazing Saddles. That's what he wanted.
Prior to?
Yeah, that was his deal with being involved. I'm writing Mongo.
Just a pawn.
Like, dude, so fucking cool. God damn. Sorry.
No, and I mean, that was my main point. It was like, it was just like such a different perspective on how stand-up would be performed. And I really do feel, I'm not a stand-up comedian, but I do feel like those 2 stand-up comedians blaze a trail for the comedy that we experience today.
Oh, they blaze the saddle.
Blaze the saddle for the comedy that we experience today, because like it wasn't like anything that you experienced prior to. So
It's not his fault Superman 3 sucked.
that is true.
All right, JT.
JT, what's up, man?
What's your final text? JT, you've got 18 seconds.
You've got shut up seconds. I love you. What was I going to say? Oh,
Turn off the mic. I'm going to murder him.
that's my honorable mention is the Zucker and Abrams team.
Yeah.
Zucker Abrams that gave us Airplane, Top Secret, Naked Gun 1, 2, and 3. Abrams did Hot Shots 1 and 2. Those movies changed my life, as a kid, because it was just, the comedy was just so so ridiculous. You know, it was like the puns and, you know, like the wordplay and stuff like that.
Dude.
Everything was played dead seriously, and then the gags, the visual gags, just everything is hilarious.
Yeah. Airplane and the first Naked Gun. My God.
I love 2 and 3 as well.
No. They're still a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But Jesus, the
Right.
first one
Yes.
for its time. My God, man.
And for those types of
Nice,
because they
Peter.
were also doing parody and
Roger.
satire too. And I said earlier about
Excuse
Brooks
me, officer.
Yeah.
I speak
being the
jive.
king of that.
Get the fuck out of here.
I definitely share that with those movies because you know what? We don't get those anymore.
No.
At least lately.
I'd
But
say
that humor is like it hasn't been around in a
well,
long
it's because
time.
the assholes who do those movies like killed it.
No, those
And then-
don't do it for me. They don't do it. For
No,
me.
they're terrible. And then, but then what's Edgar Wright kind of saved it again. You know?
Yes.
Like when he started making Shaun of the Dead and Hot
Yes.
Fuzz, that was like, oh, this is like a new take
Oh,
on
let's
the
parody the
genre.
zombie movie. Let's parody.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like
They do
it didn't.
he does it right.
It didn't feel like Zucker and Abrams. It felt like his own thing. You know,
Yes.
it was kind of a reinvention of the genre and like a rejuvenation of it, but without being a copy of it. You know.
Yeah.
And I love Andrew Tribeca, but it's like half as good as Naked Gun, and Naked Gun's amazing. So I still love Andrew Tribeca.
Yeah.
But like, you know, he did his own thing, Edgar Wright. But
Edgar Wright, real quick. Edgar Wright.
Like you said, Edgar Wright.
Funny editing, man.
Oh yeah.
Just
No, that's true.
just
Edgar
creative
Wright's
and
a big
different.
influence on all of
And
us.
we
yeah,
and we
there's
know
no doubt.
that I can correct Edgar Wright's a big influence, but like just creative, fun editing where
Yeah.
you wouldn't expect something to be funny because of the way that it was cut or shot.
Exactly.
We
And
need
then
to
it's
throw Simon Pegg in with that mix because he's a writing partner. in
100%.
a lot of this.
100%.
You can actually.
Sorry, Simon, if you're listening.
And Nick Frost.
Coen Brothers are good at that too, in a subtler,
He's also
smaller
great.
way. Like
Anyway.
in Big Lebowski, when like, you know, he trips on his own. He trips on the thing that he nailed to the floor.
To guard
Yeah.
the,
Because like
front
the
door.
cut is perfectly timed when it shows it, and it's just like sometimes just like the cut is the joke.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just a stupid object sitting there, and you're laughing at the object. And anyway, so my actual pick,
Ah,
very different genre.
what?
No, very not genre, but very different medium.
I did too. I'm not even mad. I did too. I
Dr.
cheese to it.
Seuss.
What I consider, you're close. What I consider the ultimate work of art ever. I've said this on record many times. It's Calvin and Hobbes, front to back.
Ah,
I love Bill Watterson and just his take on life and everything. He's just got that like Salinger, Steve Ditko, like just that reclusive, like probably objectivist, like view of the world, and like
Man.
just like cynical, but just cynical. Like you can tell he wants people to be better, but he's also cynical. You know what I mean? And also just laughs at dumb shit too. And that's what Calvin and Hobbes is. It's just like this 6-year-old who is way too smart for his age. You know what I mean? Like, which I don't know. That's always funny. That's always a funny trope to me is when like kids are just like, they talk
Smart.
like college students when they're 6, you know? But like, it was like, he never answers the question whether Hobbes is in his imagination or real. We all pretty much know it's his imagination, you know what I mean? But like they play it off as if it's real.
well, he never.
Well, I mean, what I mean is like they never
He never admits it. They show us.
they
but-
never break that wall in the stories themselves. You know what I mean? It's never like Rosalind the babysitter sees Hobbes, you know what I mean, and then like wipes her eyes and goes, "What did I just see?" You know what I mean?
Right,
They never
right,
go
right,
there.
right.
It's like, but it's hilarious because it's like there's just goofy stuff that happens. There's like sci-fi stuff that happens, and then it's like Calvin often is like the voice of reason. You know, like he'll be walking around with Hobbes like philosophizing in the woods, like as they often do. There was like a lot of different types of comics they had in that, and it was like
When they find the dead sparrow, that's one of the ones that stands out for
was
that.
good, yeah.
It was great. And they like break it down and they talk about it. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh my God, there's this amazing moment that he has, and he's learning something about
Right.
life and death. And sorry.
No,
But
that's cool.
that's the one that stands out like that.
yeah, or when their house was robbed, that was based off when
Yeah.
his house was actually robbed, and like just talking about like, you know, just real life stuff and like issues and things like that. But like it was always very general. Like you can still read it today and it resonates just as much because they weren't making like period jokes. You know what I mean? It was like it was from 85 to 95, something like that, somewhere in there. There was like a 10-year period, and
The
like
closest thing they ever mentioned was when he told him that they bought him at Kmart and he was a blue light special. And that was like the closest thing to like show, like, because Kmart's not around anymore, that
Yeah.
shows when it was made. But other than that, like really everything holds up now.
Right.
You could give, I plan on, I don't know how many of their books, but I would plan on giving them to my nieces and nephews and like,
right.
maybe they'll get out of it what I got out of it.
Like there's some good strips out there, like The Far Side and Peanuts was great growing up and stuff like that. But like Calvin and Hobbes just blows all that stuff so far out of the water that you're like, wow, like this guy did all this with this medium, you know? And it's just amazing. And the artwork is amazing too, because it's like he draws Calvin like as just like this spiky haired cartoon kid. But then like when he draws him running through a Martian landscape, like the way he colors it and the way he draws like the landscape and all that stuff is just like,
or the prehistoric.
Whoa, like he knows how to draw, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
There's a cool dinosaur stuff. There's one of these like the Sam Spade character. There's like, he does all these like really cool. I'm so glad you brought this up. I haven't thought about this stuff in years, but like there's a really fucking rad backdrop of space, and he's in like a you know, some sort of spaceship shooting things. And you're right, he's a really talented artist too.
He really remembers what it was like to be a kid too, which like a lot of adults don't actually remember. You know, a lot of adults look down on kids and they just like, they don't literally remember what it was like to be in their own shoes when they were at that age and stuff. And he perfectly captures like the imagination and like the just like the listlessness of reality to a kid, where it's like you want everything to be bigger and better. Like they keep like Calvin keeps going Kazam, and he turns his parents into like Martians, and they're just like, one of the Martians is like, is probably his mom is just like, get upstairs or something. And that's when one of those landscapes comes in. And he just like goes Kazam outside his window. And then he's sitting there angry and bored, like out his window, while in the background, there's like this beautifully drawn like space background, you know? And it's just awesome. And like my favorite strip of all time is the one where, just because I relate to it so much as a kid and as a grown up, because I haven't really changed that much. It's like, Calvin, like it shows like a pterosaur, like a flying dinosaur, just like flying through the sky, just like peacefully. And then you see like a giant brachiosaurus come up from the water going, Calvin, pay attention, and screaming at him. And it cuts back to reality. And she's like, the teacher, Miss Wormwood, is like screaming at him from his desk. And she's like, we're studying geography now. What state do you live in? And Calvin quickly goes, denial. And she's like, well, I guess I can't argue. She's like, well, I guess I can't argue that. Walking away, like just defeated. And then the final panel is like the dinosaur flying again. And it's just a white background. And it's like,
it goes back into,
it's like a panoramic panel. You know what I mean? And like the dinosaur's all the way to the right. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's perfectly drawn. It's perfectly worded. It's perfectly just executed what he wanted to say. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, yeah, I'm this dinosaur flying around, then somebody interrupts me, and then I'm like, fuck off, and then like keeps going. And what's great is that, I was trying to say earlier, is that Calvin, oftentimes when he's walking in the woods philosophizing with Hobbes, and he talks about this in his book, the 10-year anniversary book, because there's a lot of interviews with him and stuff in there. Calvin will like take the perspective of like what the author is talking about. Like it's like he like makes a big speech about why people like get caught up with technology or whatever, this and that. You know what I mean? Like he's speaking through the character and, you know, like saying like nice things about society and stuff. And you're just like, oh man, yeah, I totally understand, Calvin. But then like the next time he'll be walking with Hobbes through the woods, and then Calvin will just be the most selfish, like awful part of humanity. And he'll just be saying like I don't want to wait for anything. I want it now because I'm an American or whatever, you know, and all this stuff. And then Hobbes has to roll his eyes at him. You know what I mean? So it's like Calvin rapidly changes from somebody you're empathizing with to somebody that like
you hate.
Yeah. That like, you're like, look at this little brat. And like, you know, that's like society at large. Like Calvin is like a mouthpiece for not only good, but evil. Like, I don't know. I could go on about this book forever. I need to get the treasure.
I think we could go on, and I love that. I would listen to you forever, and I think we could go on about our own influences forever. We could go a whole nother, 3 or 4 rounds at least, I think, on this topic. It's a good topic, and but I think it's that time where we need to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening, and Tony Marino, take us out.
This has been Kick Rock's podcast, 2 Drink Minimum, talking about comedic influences that we've all appreciated over the years. Nobody said Dave Chappelle, chicka chicka bow wow, count out, Dave Chappelle, wow.
So there you have it, kids. Kick Rock's influences, all white guys and Richard Pryor. Are we diversified or what? Women everywhere are screaming at us right now. Of course we love the women in comedy. Of course, they've influenced us. We were just going off the top of our heads. We're young boys. What can I say? We're influenced by men. Is that so bad? Maybe. It's 2019. Maybe it's really bad. Who knows? Anyway, if you like the podcast, if you hated it, you can let us know. And you know where you can do that. You can email us. You can go old school, the podcast at kickerrock.com. You can comment right on our Facebook page if you want to. You can let us know on iTunes. Heck, you can download us on Spotify. Don't forget to do that. This has been 2 Drink Minimum. We've been drinking, thinking, and talking shop. Thank you so much for joining us. Cheers, everybody.